Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wings on Air podcast series. I'm your host and National Vice President, Justin Vence, and I'm excited to be with you here for the 5th episode of our podcast series, where today we'll be talking with none other than Tom Quelly and Sonic Johnson, two people this time, both of whom have very extensive backgrounds. And we're super appreciative that they took the time out of their busy schedules to be here with us. And the topic that we're going to be covering is motivation. Motivation is something that's so important whenever you're in a leadership role, because your people need to be motivated in so many different ways so that they can really stay with the job that they're doing. Most importantly, do it to the best of their ability. Give it their all, and really go above and beyond. But if they're not motivated, they're not going to want to do that job. And so these are the things that we're going to be talking about in today's episode. So I encourage everyone to sit back, take some notes, and listen to the podcast.
It's good.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the your Silver Wings podcast, Wings on Air. Today, this is going to be going over our 5th episode. And we have two very special guests with us, and we're very excited to have them. So Colonel Quelly and Sonic Johnson. So we're so thankful that you gentlemen could take the time out of your busy schedules to be here with us today. And so what we'd kind of like you both to do is a one at a time. Just kind of tell us a little bit about yourselves, your background, maybe where you went to school, your career field in between, and where you are now, and what that's like now. So we can kind of start off with you, Colonel Quelly.
Well, good evening. First off, it's a pleasure to talk to you. So my name is Tom Quelly. I live in Orlando, Florida. It's been a long path to get here, though. Like you, Justin, I grew up in New Jersey. Big family. I had 4 brothers and sisters. And, in high school, I was a runner. Hard to believe now. Track and cross country. Played in the band. Worked hard, got good grades. And, but if I was going to go to college, it was going to be on a scholarship or working my way through. That's just the way my family's finances were. So I applied to ROTC and I applied to the Air Force Academy. I'll tell you a funny story about that, though. But the bottom line is I got into the Air Force Academy. So the person I have to thank for that is Mrs. Rogers. So Mrs. Rogers taught typing class when I was a sophomore in high school. So nowadays people don't know what that is, but we used to have a class where they taught you how to type on a typewriter. And Mrs. Rogers was tough. No erasures, no mistakes, no nothing. So we had to write a letter to a congressman. And this is 1973. So, I can't think of anything to really write about. I'd say 2/3 of my class were writing letters about the Vietnam War. And that seemed, kind of that idea was used up. So we were watching television in my house, and I'm lamenting to my father about this. And just then a commercial comes on television about the Air Force Academy. And my dad goes, "Why don't you write a letter about the Air Force Academy?" So I did. I wrote this letter in Mrs. Rogers' typing class to a congressman. Next thing you know, I was on the mailing list. Next thing you know, I got a nomination from my senator. Next thing you know, I was at the Air Force Academy. I served 28 years in the Air Force, fighter pilot, mostly flying F-15s, but spent a lot of time in the training business. In my last probably 6 or 8 years in the Air Force, I was probably most of that time in the training business. I got to command the operations group at Tyndall Air Force Base, which was the F-15 schoolhouse. Probably the highlight of my career, I got to command the 14th Flying Training Wing at Columbus Air Force Base, Mississippi. And then my last assignment was as the Deputy Director for Operations at the Air Education Training Command, where I was basically responsible for organizing, training, equipping, all of the Air Force's flying training. I retired from the Air Force in 2005, joined a defense contractor, and worked there ever since. And I've worked in business development, which is basically about getting new business. And I've worked in program management, which is basically about delivering, that new business to our customers. Got 2 grown daughters, and one of them's in the Air Force, and they're both eye doctors. That's my short story.
Short story, but I know there's so much more that goes into it. But just even with that short story, it sounds quite extensive and honestly extremely interesting. And so, it's unfortunate we're not here in person. If I had a cup of coffee, I would definitely love to hear more about your story because it sounds like Mrs. Rogers really kind of set the path for you for that. And it's quite neat. I'll be honest, it's really interesting. So thank you, sir, for sharing that with us. And then, so Sonic, if you'd like to share your story and where you came from, and you can go ahead and do that, sir.
Hired Lieutenant Colonel Rick Sonic Johnson. I basically was commissioned out of the ROTC detachment at LSU, and where that's how I got introduced to the Air Force. And I did it. I built swimming pools for a living. That's how I put myself through college. I was the only kid out of six that went to college initially. And built a pool for the ROTC detachment commander, and that's how I got into the Air Force. He thought that he saw some leadership in the things I was doing in his backyard. Took me flying his own personal airplane that weekend, and the rest is history, which started a 23-year flying career for me. And I've flown four flying assignments and flew four different airplanes. The C-130 was where I spent a lot of time. And I was an instructor pilot in training command twice. I was a T-38 instructor pilot my first assignment, and then I was a T-1 instructor pilot my last assignment. I retired here at Columbus Air Force Base, Mississippi, in 2004, and that one each ROTC commander came back as a retired colonel and retired me, welcomed me into the retired ranks. Immediately after that, I was hired as a civil service here and ran the public affairs team here at Columbus as a Air Force civilian. And I was the first Air Force civilian here first officer to get hired into the civil service. And that was after a law change the year before, in 2003, because we were not allowed to get two sources of federal income as officers. So you would basically forfeit some of your money in there when the Air Force pays you. So anyways, there it is. Spent 10 years being the public affairs director, leading both enlisted airmen, officers, civilians, and contractors. So that was a true leadership challenge because it's all of those different types of airmen, and they're all airmen, require leadership, motivating and leading in a different manner. Basically, out of my 23-year active duty career, I spent 1 month short of 6 years in some sort of school or training. Now, that shows the Air Force's commitment to training, to making you smarter and better. I retired 2 years ago, almost exactly, from the civil service after 37 years of total service to the Air Force. And now I'm in co-owner of Healthy Home Solutions, of Valara Air and Water Purification Technology Distributor. Also, the president of the local chapter, the Golden Triangle chapter of the Air Force Association. And under that mantle is how I keep in touch with the Arnold Air and Silver Wings entities at both Ole Miss and Mississippi State University, which are both in our chapter. It's interesting is that as one of the last things I did before I retired, as I was on active duty, is I went back and I was a guest speaker when they stood up the Arnold Air chapter, reinstituted the Arnold Air chapter at Mississippi State. That was pretty neat. So watching it come back to earth and now see the national headquarters for Silver Wings, pretty impressive journey. Proud of you.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome, Sonic. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, you've been really great, working with the Air Force Association and just being so willing for our Silver Wings chapter to be a part of you guys. I remember, I believe it was 2 years ago that we ate breakfast with you and a couple other of the people who were a part of that. And it was honestly one of the most interesting things. It was an honor to be involved with that and just kind of had the experience with you all and just to get to know you a little more. It's always nice to put a name to the face, I should say. And I also have, I know Colonel Quelly and you, Sonic, you had a hunting trip planned, so I'm sorry that it was cut short and you weren't able to do it. But I did like how you mentioned, Sonic, that Colonel Quelly always came back to Mississippi every so often to, reconnect or just to connect again with the communities and the people that he knows. And so I just want to say that's really cool to hear. I always appreciate hearing stuff like that. Especially it just turns to leadership. You never, even though you may leave a career, a career field or just move away, you're always willing to come back and reconnect with those people and catch up. And I think that's one of the most encouraging and just awesome things, and just awesome demonstrations of leadership that I love hearing about. So I appreciate that. Without further ado, believe Michael has a couple other things that he wants to say. Michael at the EMC, and greetings for you, Colonel Quelly. So Michael, if you just want to say this real quick, then we'll kind of jump right in.
Yeah, Colonel Quelly, General Woodward does want to express his appreciation for past sponsorships from Lockheed Martin Aero in Fort Worth. And a big hello from Miss Marianne Williams, our senior director, and her husband, Major General Brett E.T. Williams, a fellow Fight and Sea model guy. I just wanted to say hello and thank you for doing this.
Awesome. Yep, I remember them both, and if you see them, please send them my regards.
All right, Deb. Thank you, sir. We just want to put that in there. Just know you're known by a lot of people, and so we're excited for you to be here. But yeah, without further ado, we will jump right into the topic for today. So, Colonel Quelly and Sonic. So today, you read the talking points. We're going to be talking about motivation today, and so we'd love to hear from both of you. Kind of give a little background. When we were coming up with these topics for these podcasts, we really wanted them to be based upon leadership and like all the things that are important about leadership. And so, we're going to, at one point, we're going to cover things such as integrity, just getting to know your people, getting involved with your people, and just a plethora of other kinds of topics that we've done before, knowing your brand and so forth. And so the one that we wanted to choose for you both was motivation. And so I believe motivation is one of those powerful tools that you can use in whatever organization you're in. You're in your own family, in your workplace, and organizations that you're a part of. This past year with COVID-19 really setting us back and causing so many challenges to come up, I decided that this was going to be a good topic to talk about. And so both of you can give your take on it, but why is motivation so important? Why is motivation so important for us and for the people that you work for and the people that are above you? We can start with you, Colonel Quelly.
Well, good, thanks. Well, if you think about it, you can look at yourself, you can look inward, and you go, when have I delivered my best performance? Whether it's athletically, academically, or maybe in work. And it's when I was really motivated to do something. And okay, what motivated me? I thought what I was doing was important. I thought it was going to make a difference. Um, I wanted to reflect well, on myself, my family, my unit, my friends. So all those things motivated me. People have other nuanced ideas about what motivates them, but I think we have a lot in common. So as leaders, we can help people recognize those things in ourselves. So I can't force someone to be motivated, but I can inspire them to self-motivate, to do great things. So, that were always important to me is helping people to understand, their role in the mission, their role in a larger accomplishment. This is true either in the military or in industry. You've all heard the story about at NASA, the guy that was, he was a janitor, a custodian. He's cleaning the place up, and somebody asked, "Well, what do you do?" He goes, "I'm helping put a man on the moon." You know, my job is to keep the workplace clean, safe, all those things, so these engineers can do their work. But he knew that, if he wasn't there, important things wouldn't get done, and eventually it would affect the mission. So helping everybody in the organization realize how they contribute to the mission, I think, is really important. Um, you know, um, Other areas reflecting on what I just said there, so some people, um, take a lot of pride in, in a job well done. So helping them to understand, um, how you define a good job, what are the job requirements? If they understand that, most people want to do a good job, and they'll do it. Where you run into problems is people don't really understand how they're contributing to the mission or what's good, what is good in their mission. So I'll leave it there and we can continue the discussion, but that's maybe a start.
Definitely, and one of the things that I like to use in the NASA example specifically is one thing that I really like. I think a lot of people would look at that, and kind of overlook it and think, okay, yeah, it's just a janitor job, not important. But you're right. If you take that person out of the equation and all the hard work that they do, sure, maybe a couple days may go by and it seems to work, but at one point it would start to affect everyone in the workplace and it would affect the mission. And I just think that that's really cool. And especially how you said, people just letting people know that their job's important and kind of like that encouragement. And I've talked to Michael about this before and I've read it all the time, but just that recognition, letting people know that they are important and that what they do is actually a big part of the mission, whether they may realize it or not, and kind of explain to them what would happen if they weren't there and how everything wouldn't work. I know we were talking about this on a past podcast episode where, people who in the Air Force, it was the story about, there's people who help the airmen with their pay and making sure they get the money that they have. And so if they're not there doing that, then the person who's about to get on a plane to go overseas or to get deployed, they have to worry about their family who's not going to be able to get money to be able to pay the bills, get food, groceries, and so forth. And it's going to affect them. It's going to affect the mission. It's going to affect how that person thinks and is going to be able to perform. So I really like that you brought that up. Thank you, sir. But that's kind of all I had for that. But
I'll add to that. One of the early lessons somebody taught to me when I was in the Air Force is always know who packs your parachute. And they didn't really mean it literally. What they meant was, our success always depends on a lot of people. And, so never think you're doing it all yourself. So, as an Air Force pilot, I know that my success depended on, maintenance people, schedulers, mission planners, life support people, all kinds of people doing their job well so that I could fly and do a mission safely. It was an important lesson.
definitely, and I'll have to remember that. Remember who packed your parachute, or know who packed your parachute. I like that. I like that term. I've never heard it before, so thank you for that, sir. Um, but yeah, Sonic, if you would like to give your input as well, why motivation is important, we can hand it off to you as well, and just kind of have a discussion afterwards.
Motivation. If you just kind of close your eyes, you're on a podcast, close your eyes, and you just look at a circle. And inside that circle, put another little circle inside of it somewhere. Any size, doesn't matter. The big circle represents life, and the little circle represents work or the mission, as we call it in the Air Force. So the size of that inside circle changes all the time. Like when you deploy, that big circle is about as big as life. And when day to day, it's about a third of it because you spend roughly 1/3 to 1/2 of your time doing the mission or do the job. And the stuff around you from all 365 degrees comes at you, and that's called life. And for you guys right now, it may be tests, exams, looking for the next job, your family, your parents, everybody wants a part of your time. Silver Wings, you guys are leaders on the national level, not only, and you guys at squadron level, but now at the national level. All these demands from life come around you, and they're displacing that middle circle. And motivation, is not it's not the same all the time. So take NatCon for example, which is the big culmination of years work, and motivating up to that's fine, and then you find that the couple of weeks after that, it's hard to get anybody to do anything. So it ebbs and flows. It ebbs and flows, and that's very much. And this is like that in the Air Force as you go on. It's not always the same. And you, as a leader, can control those life inputs. You may have your top rock star, my go-to lieutenant, there all of a sudden. And what I don't know is his grandfather just passed away that raised him, and it was a big deal to him. So one is that you have to know the landscape of your people. And it's really harder today because there's more walls up around people about letting them know what's going on in their lives. But you have to develop the environment to be able to have that cross flow and let me know when there's life events. Someone can have a flat tire on their way to work. And depending on their level of resiliency, that may be a game changer for them for the rest of the day versus, I stick my thumb out, hitchhike, and have a great ride to work. So the one is that, life is always interacting, and in the Air Force, we cultivate our families to help support us when we're doing our mission. So part of that life circle now helps support that mission. And then when, again, like Colonel Quelly said, when he had a little baby at home and he was working, 7 days a week for 2 years, not getting not getting some warm fuzzies from the home life because they're saying this is out of balance. So it is our job is to be able to have to keep rebalancing that all the time and giving them expectations of, hey, I'm going to be gone for a while, and they get it. I'm back. Air Force gives you a lot of time off. Now that's for Air Force people. I spent my last 10 years as an Air Force civilian. Totally different creatures. And motivation is different. You motivate civilians a lot different than you do active duty military people. And one of the Air Force's problems is that we have a lot of civilians now, and they really don't teach you how to lead them because they're not like leading officers and enlisted members. They're not the same. I could, Colonel Qualley could come in the office, Sonic, good job, take the rest of the day off. And I'm like, woohoo, I'm off and we're gone. I can't do that to an Air Force civilian. He couldn't do that to me as an Air Force civilian doing the exact same job. Sonic, take the rest of the day off. Yeah, I got to put in leave paperwork for it. So there's learning the two environments. While they're similar, they're not leading and motivating are the same. And basically, and then you got to realize people can't. When you're leading, is fun. It is great leading a great team. It's challenging when you lead teams that have some dysfunction to them because when you fix it, it's kind of rewarding. But you got to realize that the team can't be at 100% all the time. And that's the hardest thing to figure out is that when you let the foot off the gas pedal and let it coast for a little while, and that's okay. And then that's actually kind of cathartic. So that's a good thing to do is to understand you can't be at 100%. And I always hated the term of reach down and give 110%. I go, dude, where did you graduate from college from? So, all right, how's that for motivation? What keeps me motivated? What kept me motivated was great leaders, getting good positive feedback from everybody, and I was, not that I was subject to failures, but I found some of the better guys were like, you know, use those to teach as a teaching moment. If we did it like this, what do you think? And let me discover the errors in my way and how to make it better. And now I think it's in the genes, it's in the DNA of airmen to be innovators. We were born out of innovation, and I think that we're always trying to make every process better. And I think by looking at ways to change things, no matter what, like that quiet guy and girl in the corner, always getting inputs from everybody, innovate, make things better, and that's pretty motivating.
Definitely. And a couple things. I laughed when you were talking about the days off, but it was it was just a perfect example, because you're absolutely right. You could say to a civilian worker, "Hey, take the day off, woohoo," and they go. But then when you tell it to somebody else, it's just there's so much more paperwork involved. You have to jump through so many hoops, and it's a perfect example. But you talk about innovating, and let me tell you that Michael Thompson. Sometimes when I first met him, he was a quiet person, but I'll tell you, he is one of the most amazing innovators I've ever met. And so I liked how you touched up on that, Sonic, because that's what it reminded me of. That's the first person that came to my mind. So I'm sure Michael's smiling right now or laughing. So I'm not going to say he's to say anything. But yeah, and all this talk about motivation is so important. And just it's always going to change. We're going to have more civilians in the Air Force. I don't know what it's going to look like 10 years from now. And so there is no definitive guide for us to really use. We're always going to have to come up with some new way to motivate people. Things are going to change and so forth. And so we have to be ready for that leap of change. And so, yeah. So Colonel Quelly, are there different kinds of motivation? And if so, like what are they? I know in my experience, I've had leaders, when I've listened to people talk, they talk about incentivizing people with, kind of time off, leaving work early, with bonuses. I guess I should say in the civilian sector. But we talked about recognition, letting your people know that what they're doing is important. But what other kinds of motivation are there?
Right. Well, I think as a leader, you do much better if you have people working for you that feel a loyalty and a desire um, to help you and not let you fail, right? So for instance, it's a little bit term, but you love to have people that'll sweat blood for you. How do you achieve that? You achieve that, I think, by always showing integrity, sincerity, showing some vulnerability. Leaders don't have to be perfect. Leaders have problems too. Talking about them with your people, I think, is a way to show that you're human, and it helps people respond to you and want to help to get the mission done. Sonic sending me a text here. Let me just see. I think he's having. Oh, Sonic tells me he can hear, but we cannot hear him. Um, so continuing that thought, I think is different people are motivated by different things, and as leaders, we have to realize that all of the people we work with, they're not the same. We're individuals, so the more that we can recognize those individuals and help each individual realize what motivates them, and then try to inspire that, I think is the best way to build a team. And in the modern world, whether it's the military or in industry, teams are what gets things done.
Them a little differently, go a little more in depth and so forth. And so, um, I really like that. What you just say.
I'll give you a simple thought. So how some people are more extroverted. They're really quick to give their opinion. Other people, tend to not speak up, especially in groups. And one of the things I've learned, particularly in industry, the smartest person in the room, might be a junior female employee, that's afraid to raise an issue or raise a question or bring something up. So as leaders, it's important to, I think, very often look around and go, well, who's not talking? And maybe give them an opportunity, or just see if they have something to add. And I can think of several examples in business where a person who otherwise would not have spoken in a meeting actually had the idea that saved the day. And so, as leaders, we got to recognize that there are team members that may be hesitant to voice their ideas, and we can help bring that out, and it helps the team.
Definitely. Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you, sir. Michael, do you have anything you want to touch up on? Any feedback for that?
Yeah, really, just the main thing main point that I'm hearing is knowing your airmen or the people that you lead at the end of the day, because everybody's different. And the number one reason why a lot of people leave their careers or their jobs that they have today are because they're not recognized by their immediate supervisor or their manager, whoever it might be.
Definitely, and fortunately, I've experienced that, but I always take it as a learning experience as well, because you know what not to do for when you lead your people. So thanks, Michael. Appreciate that. Okay, but can you kind of, is there maybe a specific story that you'd like to share of a time in your life when you really, you just felt really down and out, you were worn out, maybe bogged down, whatever it was in your earlier years in your career in the Air Force, and it was due to low motivation, like you really weren't feeling it, you didn't feel that motivation to keep going, you wanted to kind of just let up and kind of just step back. Was there a time in your life where that happened?
Awesome. I've got a perfect story. So when I was a very young major, so this is I had maybe 11, 12 years in the Air Force, and I was in what was perceived to be a less than glorious staff job. I was leading a operational test team at Eglin Air Force Base, and the person that I succeeded got fired. So all was not well with that team, and it was a job where I traveled a great deal. So typically, I went to work on Monday, then I went to work on Tuesday, got on an airplane, and was on travel till Friday. Got back on Friday, worked Saturday and Sunday, and started over again. And we had a huge job, but a pretty small group of people. So I worked 7 days a week, for 2 years. And during that time, I had a new baby at home, and so my wife wasn't really happy with this. And I remember driving to work early in the morning, and seeing construction workers on the side of the road. They're doing, for some reason, they always started early in Florida. I guess it's because of the heat. Thinking, wow, I wish I just had a simple job like that. And it was the first time in my Air Force career I really didn't know what was coming next. And so, but anyway, I pressed ahead. I worked with some very good people. I did not like my bosses, frankly. They put a lot of pressure on me, but didn't provide a lot of help. And but in the end, we were successful, and we tested a classified system that in the first Gulf War, I know for a fact in the first minutes of the first Gulf War saved a pilot's life and resulted in an aerial victory. So it's like, wow, that was worth it. And but it told me at the time, the lesson I took from all that is, sometimes, life's difficult, but you gotta press on through. After that, I went on to be a squadron commander, group commander, wing commander. Right? It was pretty good. It was worth that hard time I spent as a major. So, the lesson on that is Winston Churchill, right? Never, never, never give up.
Definitely. And there's a couple of things that you said. It's funny that you mentioned that when you said you were looking at the construction workers and you said to yourself, "Oh, I wish my job was that simple." And I haven't had an extensive career yet, but I'll be honest, there have been times when I have just a busy schedule, I guess I should say, and I have so much on my plate, so much to do, and then I look at some of my other friends who, I'll be honest, their schedules are pretty lax. They don't have much going on, and I think to myself, I really wish that I could have their schedule, where they can just do whatever they want, go travel across the state in the middle of the week. But it's kind of like you said, never give up, and I think it's something I've realized now, and I'll fully realize when I graduate is yeah, there was a lot of pushing. There's a lot of people that I didn't like working with, but it was just about keeping your head high and looking at the end goal, right, the end result, and it was totally worth it. And I can kind of say that now. And Michael, I'm sure you can say the same thing because Michael is one of the hardest workers I've ever met, and he's such an amazing person. And I know there's times when his motivation has been down, but he continues to keep pushing. So, Michael, if you want to share a little bit on that.
Yeah, definitely. Um, just being national president with all the positions that I've held in organizations, serving on 3 executive boards at the same time as a college student. Um, there is a lot that goes on um, that is behind the scenes that not everybody sees, but it does get overwhelming at times, and you just have to remember what you're here for, remember the mission that you're here to continue serving, and really that common purpose of why you're here at the end of the day is what keeps me going. I know it does a lot of others, and I wouldn't trade a day for it.
One of the things that I always thought was valuable in Colin Powell's book, he notes that, in a big organization, so he served in the U.S. Army, there's a million things you don't like, and you run into people you don't like, policies you don't like, just things you don't like, and if you dwell on those, it can be pretty demotivating. On the other hand, if you look at the things you do like, the things that are worthwhile and all that, it's a completely different picture. And you find very often that, those the things you don't like, it's just noise, whether it's people, you can ignore them, because you can't control the people around you. Sometimes you can't control what your bosses do, but you can control yourself. You can control how you react to it. You can control whether you let it bother you, whether you dwell on it, or whether you just, you know, worry about the things that you can control, and move on. And I found that really valuable, so, even when I found, maybe in the organization I was in at the time, there were things I didn't like, but I'd look around, I go, wait, you know what? There's a lot of things I do like. And that's what kept me coming to work.
Definitely. Thank you, sir, for all that. That's extremely helpful and just amazing. I always love hearing from people who've just really gone through the career and just experienced so much. I think it's just helpful for me because I can know what to expect. I don't know what's to come for sure, but I know how to handle it, and you know, I can assuredly say to myself, I remember the conversation I had with Colonel Quelly and his experience with it, and I know what he said, and so I'm gonna remember that and stick to it. That kind of concludes our podcast about motivation. Colonel Quelly, we're extremely happy that you would really take the time to be here, especially for you, Sonic, as well. I know you both have busy schedules and you have stuff to do, and for you to just take the time out of your day on, this Friday, which usually a lot of people like to take off on, just to be here and really pour into our organization, into Silver Wings, and really just give back to these young and aspiring leaders who are going to go out into multiple kinds of places. We don't know whether it's in the Air Force, in the civilian sector. We don't know, but this is going to help them a lot. I know it is, because our past podcasts have helped them, and we've gotten really good feedback. So we appreciate you being here, Sonic and Colonel Quelly.
Yeah, I second that as well. Thank y'all for being here. From our nation of over really 3,000 people for our Arnies and our Silver Wingers. And it really means a lot having our Academy graduate and our Arnie alum come back and talk to us and share your experiences with us.
Well, first off, thank you to Silver Wings for all the stuff you do in your communities. And Justin and Michael, congratulations on what you've accomplished in your leadership to date. Stay in touch. I'd love to hear what happens to you guys after college and where you end up. One of the things I think Justin said it is you don't know where you'll end up. It'll be a surprise, and that's the way life is, and that's kind of cool. So again, thanks a lot.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but there was so much to be said about the topic of motivation. And, I already know that motivation is important. And one of the big takeaways that I've really got from this podcast conversation is that how much more important that it is than I realized, especially in the environment that we're in now. Motivating your people is so important. It's because it's what gets the job done. If you have people who are dropping out and not putting forth 100% effort because they're not there, they're not motivated to do it, and they can't even understand the mission, then it's going to be hard for them to do a good job. And most importantly, you're not going to be having your team running at maximum efficiency. And so for everyone who took the time to listen, I just want you guys to remember, motivate your team. Whatever leadership position you're in, maybe it's just your group of friends, whether you're in a leadership position at work, for those who are in leadership positions in Silver Wings or in Arnold Air, always know your people and motivate them. Find things that are going to get them to really be passionate about what they're doing and get them to do it more often. Don't leave them out in the dust. Always have those conversations with them and know what motivates them, okay? Know what really keeps them going, whether it's just pointing something out in the future or telling them to take the weekend off and not to work on anything. Know your people and care for them. Make sure that they're staying motivated so you all can stick together and get the job done and work as a team. Thank you so much for everyone who took the time to listen, and we look forward to seeing you on episode 6 of Wings on Air.